Is it cool if I move the podium down and stuff? Yeah, okay. I'd like to be a little bit closer if that's cool. Should just move it up even. It is cold down here, huh? Man. How are you guys? Good. Good. I'm good. Thanks for asking. It was very nice. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of new faces in the room. So I don't know if this is like, there's a lot of freshmen or sophomores who I haven't met. But probably for some of the seniors and juniors, you know what we're going to be talking about tonight. But before we get into it, I want to introduce myself. My name's Joe, as it says up there. Is there another picture with like the kids? Oh, cool. Okay. So that's my wife, Kim, my son, Micah, who's now 7, and my daughter, Avery, who's 5. This was right after her dance recital. So yeah, got 2 kids and a wife. We live up in San Jose, where I work for Apple. I work within like the special projects group. We're working on autonomous driving. And I'm responsible for like the engineering and program management team for algorithms, software engineering, and verification. But I graduated from Cal Poly with computer engineering. What's up? Yeah. We can all cry together, yeah. Do they still have like 7 p.m. labs on Fridays? No? Oh, okay. What, they do? Yeah. Yeah, brutality, right? Shoot. Yeah, there's business students who didn't have classes on Fridays got really jealous of them. Shoot. I was like, man, I'm gonna try to get that experience. Went and got like a grad degree in business. Totally was not fun. So anyway, is there a picture of me with my? Yes. I know, pretty different, right? I don't have glasses anymore. But yeah, so that was me. I walked down from my dorm not knowing that it was going to be the picture I'd be carrying with me for like 4 years. So I actually forgot to comb my hair and stuff. But yeah, that was my photo. What I'm up to nowadays in regards to Epic, my wife and I are involved with this ministry called Epic Legacy, where the goal of Epic Legacy is to see people who graduate from Epic, who move up to the Bay Area, transition just successfully. So get plugged into church, find community, and really just go from college into the workplace where God has sprinkled them to be salt and light. So that's what we're up to. But back in the day, I was here at Epic, not actually in this building, but Epic, Cal Poly. I used to say that I started this ministry, but in actuality, I've come to realize that I was the first person that God called to the ministry. I think after this night, after this story, I think you'll agree, you know, that like it wasn't I who started this ministry, but it's just God who started it and who continues it on. So tonight, they asked me what would I speak on. It's what I speak on every year. That's why I think they only invite me once a year. So whether this is your first night at Epic, you know, if you're like, you don't know who God is, if you're seeking God, if you're on the spectrum of like on fire for Him, or you just feel like, you know, you've done the thing, you know, with Jesus. Just wanted to let you know that there's something special that's happening in this movement. That if there's anything that you take away from tonight, it's to know that God is at work, that you're in the midst of God's movement. And so what my job will be tonight is just to tell you the story of the first few chapters of this movement. Yes. I wrote this down, so I'll say it. You're not here by happenstance. You're not here because of routine. You're here by divine appointment. Because there have been hundreds of college students before you who've prayed for you to be here tonight. And then there will be hundreds of college students who come after you because of the prayers that you give them. So before we get into it, let me pray for us. And we'll dive in. God, Lord, I pray for tonight. That tonight would just be a reminder of how faithful you are to us. That you invite us into your ministry. That you bless us through the blessings of others. That you walk alongside us. I pray, Holy Spirit, that you would descend upon this place. That you would grip our hearts. That whatever you have to say, that we would be able to hear it loud and clear. That wherever people may be, that you would just reach down deep and let them know that you're there with them. And so, Lord, I thank you for what you will do. I'm excited to say or tell the story of how this thing started. And Lord, I'm looking forward to hearing more updates about what you're doing in and through this ministry. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. To really understand how this thing started, you kind of have to understand where I was coming from. So I'm kind of a local kid. Grew up in Atascadero, like the place that has In-N-Out Burger. And so I'm actually half white, half Filipino, also known as like half white, half awesome. But I'm from Atascadero, where we go out and kind of shoot guns and stuff like that. So people didn't really know what a Filipino was, so they all thought I was Mexican. So I actually picked up some Spanish pretty good. But anyway, that was just kind of my identity growing up. I didn't really understand what it meant to be kind of this ethnically multicultural person, just more about like trying to fit into a space that was predominantly Caucasian. So that was me. I had grown up for the most part in the church. Did a lot of the Bible studies, Bible memorization, stuff like that, but I would definitely say right before coming to Cal Poly, I was at like a very lukewarm state in my own walk with the Lord. Let's just say that like I was super good with like Christianese, like holy sanctification, throwing all that stuff out that where it's like, wow, this kid really knows what he's talking about. But inside it was just like, wasn't really walking tight with the Lord. So that was kind of where I was at. And a weird thing happened to me right before I came to Cal Poly. I moved like 15 minutes, I was at church, and this elder who I had never met before comes up to me and he says, "Hey Joe, I heard that you're going to Cal Poly." I'm like, "Yep, don't know who you are, old man." And he's like, "I just wanted to give you a word of advice. College is often the fork in the road for most people's spiritual walks. It's where they choose to follow God for the rest of their lives, or they don't." He's like, "Choose wisely." I was like, "I don't even know who you are," kind of like shut that conversation down. But that night, I threw up a prayer. And the story I'll tell tonight starts with a prayer and ends with a prayer. Prayer I threw up to God. It wasn't really a serious one. But I was like, "God, I don't know what this old guy was talking about, but you know who I am. You know that if I go to Cal Poly, that I'm not going to probably actively pursue you. You're just going to have to drop something on my lap. You're going to have to pursue me." And that's it. Forgot about that prayer. I come to Cal Poly, Wow Week. You guys still do that? Okay, cool. Yeah. Still connected. Anyway, as like a preeminent wise person that I am, I was like, Wow Week is a great time to get all 4 of my wisdom teeth pulled out. So I was like, boom, pulled out all 4 of the wisdom teeth. I was like bleeding all the time, like, "What's up, guys?" Like, had like the whole swollen face. "Yeah, I'm at Cal Poly." Anyway, like I had like massive bleeding problems, and so like I had to go back to the orthodontist. He's like, "Dude, here's some Vicodin." I was like, "Okay, cool." Pop that sucker in. Dang, I gotta tell you, opioids do me wonder. I would pop those Vicodins and everything would be so much better, and then I would forget what happened. So anyway, it's Wow Week. I'm bleeding from the mouth. I decided that it's probably not the best time to go out and do like a scavenger hunt, stuff like that, because probably lose all my iron and my blood. But I went downstairs and was shooting pool at, I don't know if they still have like the red brick dorms, but Muir was the, yeah, okay, cool. So they had a pool table down there, shooting pool, and I was like, super good at social skills as a freshman. So there's like this girl in the corner, and so I just spent the entire time shooting pool trying to ignore her. Apparently she was a part of like Campus Crusade, and she was like probably not all that great at what she was being called to do, but she was like there to hand out flowers for Crusade. So I was like shooting pool trying to ignore her, but she was supposed to talk to me. Anyway, by the time I'm done like shooting my 8th game of pool, she actually ends up approaching me and says, "Hey, have you heard of Campus Crusade? I'm like, nope. And she's like, it's a Christian ministry. You want to fill out this flyer? I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I just fill out a flyer and I go up. So it's like about like 7 p.m. that night. I'm like, yeah, it's a good time for some opioids. Pop in my bike in. And then I get a knock at the door. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go and open the door. And I'm like, dang, I really got to cut back on these things. Because like there's this like Yakuza-looking Japanese dude with like a trench coat, like super stocky, standing right next to this dude who was 6'7", red afro, like Ronald McDonald status. I'm like, I almost turned back around to go back to bed. I'm like, night's over, you know? And they're like, hey, how's it going? We're here from Campus Crusade, you know, and we saw that you filled out an interest form, so I just wanted to meet you and stuff like that. I'm like, cool, okay, come on in, of course. And, you know, one thing led to another. I find that I'm like now in a Bible study, and they're like, hey, we need a place to host Bible study. And my roommate at the time, he was actually somebody from my high school. Great dude, ended up being my best man at my wedding. Like, I didn't know when we were friends how like completely disorganized and messy the dude was. Let's just say, like, you know, in the Red Brick dorms, like the separation between the beds, like, is almost non-existent, right? And so his side was known as like the blob, because like he would just, there was no hamper, it was just the floor, and so like things would just pile up, and then he would rummage through it for things that he would need, you know, like he'd have fun pencils, calculators, and stuff like that, right? And so the Bible study leader was like, hey, so where should we host Bible study? And my roommate's like, our room. I'm like, dude, look around, man. It smells. You can't invite people in here. So then that's how Bible study started for me, freshman year. Every Monday, Bible study was held in our dorm. I was terrified with what people would think if they were to come in, so I rushed back from class 30 minutes before Bible study, take every piece of the blob, shove it in every corner that I could, hide it, so that people could come and actually have a place to sit. And that's how I actually ended up getting plugged into Epic. It was God's direct answer to my prayer that I could not escape his pursuit of me, because every Monday I had to get back to my dorm to clean the blob so that we could have Bible study. And so I was just forced to be in Bible study. So I'm going through, it's freshman year, it's like midway through freshman year. And Crusade National was recognizing that, like, hey, they're not able to reach into different like ethnic groups. It was like predominantly or almost completely a Caucasian ministry. So like they wanted to start this thing called Epic. And so for Cal Poly, the only Asian on staff happened to be my Bible study leader. So he's like, hey Joe, you're also the only Asian person in Bible study. Do you want to start Epic, right? So I looked at him, I'm like, you know, I just want to kind of like do a quick summary for you, man. Most people thought I was Mexican growing up. I'm only half Asian, and I'm Filipino, so I'm not sure where is that Polynesian? Is that really Asian? I don't know, right? I don't know what it means to be Asian. In fact, I think I associate mostly with Caucasian. And he's like, well, will you pray about this? I'm like, I'll pray about it. So we would meet weekly, so totally did not pray about it. And then the next week comes around, and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm going to meet with my discipler now. His name is T-Bone. Anyway, Japanese dude named T-Bone, whatever. So it's time to meet up with him. And I'm like, shoot, I need to pray for this thing called Epic. God, I'm supposed to pray about this Asian ministry, whatever. You want to say no so I can go to discipleship. And then something like plucked one of my heartstrings. Like, what was that? What? And then I went to my discipler later that day, and I'm like, hey, I don't know, weird thing happened. I like actually prayed about this, and then like I felt something, you know. And then that's how I got sucked in. He was like, hey, let's go start this thing. And so, just to give you a sense of like where it was at, I think the largest epic movement at the time was like 5 people. I think Davis held the record, you know. So there was no formula to follow. So my freshman year was really a year where we're like, let's try to start this thing. I don't really know what this thing is. Whatever, let's ask people to come. And no one would come, right? No surprise. So we just prayed about it. You know, said, God, what is this thing supposed to do? And then the year's about to end, and my Bible study leader's like, hey, do you want to go to Epic Conference? I'm like, pray about it. Pray about it. Turns out, ding, go to Epic Conference. It was pretty large. I think there was like 15 of us. And so we were doing Epic Conference, and then they had this thing called Epic Summer Project. And so they're pitching an Epic Summer Project. It's in Hawaii. So they're like, hey, you know, you gotta raise money for ministry in Hawaii. So you just think of a pitch, right? Like, hey, you want to support me? I'm doing Jesus' work in Hawaii. You know. So they're like, hey, does anyone want to do this? So my Bible study leader / discipler is like, Joe, do you want to do this? I'm like, pray about it, man. Jesus, I shouldn't do this Hawaii thing, right? Ding. Next thing I know, I'm in Hawaii. And man, this is how my freshman year ended. Right before I left, I closed out finals week. The identity of who I was, who I had tried to create myself to be, the facade I created, was just like, I tried to be, you know, like the smart, nice kid. I was very proud of myself walking into my final freshman year for calculus. I missed 2 points the entire quarter. I was like, it's time for me to get up there and teach. And so the final came, and that night, it was a 7 a.m. final. Do you guys still have 7 a.m. finals? Like, that's just trying to set you up for failure, right? So anyway, I have a 7 a.m. calculus final, but it was also like, do you guys have like plus bucks still? Or like, is there like there's a currency, right? Like some currency for food and stuff like that. But it's like, you can't use it for much. Yeah, it's totally messed up, right? Anyway, so like back in the day, if you didn't use all your plus bucks, the things would just like expire. So I had all these plus bucks. Like my meal plan was like, I think I had the 14 meal a week thing, you know, so like I had a ton of plus bucks left. So I go to this thing called like VG's Cafe. If you guys still have that. I don't know why people are cheering. Is it good? Okay, back in the day, they served like grade D meat. It was actually the reject meat from the state hospital. Anyway, yeah, but it was the only thing that was open like after 10 o'clock at night. So I go and I have like 100 plus bucks, and I just go like buck wild, right? Like, I just like double cheeseburgers, French fries, curly fries. Like I had a ginormous thing of Mountain Dew, drank that sucker down. I'm like, yes! $100 plus bucks, totally did it. Went to lay down for my 7 a.m. final and did not sleep. Just stared at the ceiling. Then my alarm goes off, and I'm like, I'm not ready for this. And then I realize that I don't have a Scantron. I'm like, oh shoot. So I wake up my buddy, I'm like, hey, do you have a Scantron? He's like, yeah, I think it's in the blob somewhere. So we're literally digging through the blob. Like, man, I find the Scantron, so I'm like fold it up and stuff like that, so I'm like flattening it out. And I run off with my calculator. I get to Cactus, I'm like, okay, that's okay. I got a lot of buffer here to still keep that A. And I go and I pull out my calculator, put it on the table, I'm like, oh my gosh. I brought the scientific calculator. And like, it's all those like graphing calculation things, like plug in the function and then see a curve. And then like, yeah. It's one of those like solar power ones. And so it was, up until then, like the first time, or the last time I had gotten a B, I think was 2nd grade for penmanship. And so you can just imagine the kind of identity I had tried to create for myself. I go and I completely bomb this final. I walk out, I get a personal email from the professor. He's like, hey, I don't know what happened. This is really weird. Like, I've never had this happen before, where I had somebody doing so well, and then someone just completely fail a final. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to hand you a B. Which now is kind of funny, because I went to B school and all I got was B's. But anyway, I got a B, and then it was the for some reason as a freshman, like it just like completely shattered my identity. Like this thing that I had tried to create, this facade that I had tried to create for like academic excellence, like the moment you get a B, it's no longer possible to achieve a 4.0, right? Like it's over, right? Looking back at it, it's pretty funny, but at the time, like it really kind of shook the foundation of who I was. That was me entering into Epic Hawaii. That whole summer project was a project where God, time and time again, confronted me with the image I had tried to create for myself versus who he had created me to be. Time and time again, he's like, Joe, you are not this, you are that. You are not this person, you are my child. And so it was I was like crying all the time, that whole summer project. But the word that I would give for anyone who is a freshman here is this. Don't be fooled in terms of what the world wants from you. Don't be fooled with what you think this ministry wants from you. Don't try to create your own identity. Spend this year pursuing who God's created you to be, because it's unique and wonderful. That was my summer. So I come back, and it's my sophomore year. Got back, I'm like big man on campus. Bible study leader comes up, he's like, hey, do you still want to do this Epic thing? I'm like, I don't know, I'll pray about it, dude. Of course, let's do it, right? So we're all like jazzed. I'm like, you know what? God's convicted me, we're gonna do this. I just come out of like Epic Summer Project. I am equipped. So we go and we try to launch the sucker, right? And then it was, I don't know if this is still the case, but back in the day when you were a club, like we attained club status. If you were a club, you had to source all your food from like the campus's restaurants. So we go and we get pizza. The only pizza place was this place called like Backstage Pizza, like this pizza joint like near the UU. It was basically like pizza, it was like cardboard with like pepperonis on top. So we go to like Crusade, which Crusade at the time was like 1,200 students. We totally pitch it. We're doing this thing called Epic. I see you Asians in the crowd. There's at least 7 of you. Come, right? We start like madly marketing this thing. We go, and I'm like, I'm a plus buck machine. I got lots of plus bucks. So I go and I get like 8 cardboard pizzas, right? So we go, we sit down, and we wait, and like, nobody came. The worst part was that we had to split 8 cardboard pizzas from Backstage between the 2 of us. It's like, dude, man, I gotta eat 4 of these? Okay, next week. Still believe God's gonna be doing something big. God's gonna do something huge. Okay, let's not go too crazy this time. Let's get 4 pizzas. We ended the night, 2 for me, 2 for him. Next week, I'm so tired of pizza. 2 pizzas, 1 for me, 1 for him. The whole sophomore year was a year that I would just describe from the world's definition of success, a complete failure. From God's definition, exactly what he had planned. Because think about like, hey, let's gather, let's come. All right, nobody's coming. What are we gonna do? We're just gonna pray. So for an entire year, Epic Ministry was just prayer time. I would say that this ministry started with a foundation of prayer. So we go, and it was a pretty discouraging year for me. Had a lot of doubts about this ministry that we were pretending to launch. And so Crusade actually did this thing called like an Epic Leaders Retreat, where basically all the ministries in California were kind of having a similar story where everybody was struggling, so they brought all the leaders down. So we all kind of like rallied in this place near San Diego, and we were all just kind of like telling stories about like, what have you tried? Because if you've tried and it's successful, I want to try that same thing. Everyone's like, nah, it's not working. But then there was Davis. Davis had 5 people. It was crazy. 5 people. What's it like? And it was just like a weekend spent just praying for one another. Like, hey, like we believe that God's going to be doing something here. God is at work. We just can't see it yet. So my sophomore year is about to end. They're like, hey, do you want to go on a summer project? I'm like, dude, I did that last year, right? I'll pray about it. So then I'm on the East Coast, Ocean City Summer Project, where God just like really helped me understand like a boldness to chase after Him, a boldness to learn about Him, and a boldness to share Him to those around me. My word for you sophomores is this: soak it all in. Soak it all in, because this is your last year as an underclassman. Next year, you're an upperclassman. Next year, whether you like it or not, you're going to be viewed as the wise person. So better soak some stuff in. Okay, so I'm now a junior. I'm heading into my junior year. My Yakuza T-Bone discipler, guy calls him to back to Hawaii. So he's still, I don't know if, do you guys do like vision trips to Hawaii?
Yeah.
I don't know if, do you ever go to like Big Island, Hilo? Yeah. So the guy who is the director at Hilo, Kent Matsui, so he was my disciple.
He drove me.
He drove you?
He drove me, yeah.
He drove you? Oh, cool.
Yeah,
he's a sweet guy. So that was my disciple. So anyway, he went to Hawaii, and so there was still no Epic at Cal Poly. And so Crusade did a great thing. They sent me an intern to help me out, but they sent me like a black dude. I mean, nothing against black people, but I'm like, dude, I don't really know what it means to be Asian. Now you bring an African American to teach me what it means to be Asian? Like, come on, God. But yeah, that was my junior year. Starts off with like, we don't even have the basic recipe. And yet, we just went around and we just hunt for Asians. It's actually true. Yeah, what's up? Some funny stories, because like, I actually had people running away from me. Like, there was this one dude, like, he went to Crusade, but he was Asian. I'm like, dude, man, we're gonna do this epic thing. You should join. He's like, nah, brah. And I'm like, no, you should do it. And every time I'd see him, I was like, come on, you haven't come yet. And it got to a point where, like, I would see him, he would lock eyes, he would turn, and he would start walking faster. And then at some point, I'm like, nah. So I start walking after him. And then, like, a bus pulled up, and, like, you could totally tell he wasn't supposed to get on the bus, but he's just like, gets on the bus. And then I'm, like, looking at him in the window, and we're like, that's how we were trying to find people. It was, like, just, like, it was brutal. But eventually, there were 3 guys who joined the ministry. It was like, hallelujah, infinite growth. I think you guys, if you went to Fall Retreat, Danny Kim, he was one of the guys. There's another guy named Mark and another guy named Joe. But yeah, so my third year was just basically, hey, it's been 3 years with Epic. We got 3 people. So let's start casting a vision. What is God going to do? Every week, we would come together and say, God is going to do something big. God's going to do something big. And every week after, it would still be the 4 of us. Eventually, it came to a point where I was like, God, like, I don't know why you keep asking me to do this, but can you just take this responsibility away from me? Can you give this to somebody else? Because I'm kind of done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'd say probably every other week would just be me, God, this thing isn't happening. Isn't my time better spent doing something else? And yet, every time I would throw that up, it would come right back down and say, for some reason, just keep going. So, junior ends. I was like, man, there's only 1 more year to go. And so I looked at the 3 guys, and I'm like, hey, you guys should go to Epic Summer Project. And they all went, I'll pray about it. And they're over at Epic Summer Project. It was great. And then I ended up having to go too. So I don't know. All 3 of my summers were now then at Epic Summer Projects. But yeah, it was an amazing thing, because what ended up happening was it was very clear what God was asking me to do. He was asking me just to pass the baton. He was like, just invest. Just invest into these guys. So spend that summer investing in them, just pouring into them. And I enter into my senior year. My word for you guys who are juniors: rise to the challenge. Whether you think you're ready for it or not, you're now an upperclassman. You don't realize what you do, how it influences those around you. Just be faithful. Rise to whatever God is calling you to. So I entered my senior year. I actually was pretty jazzed. I was like, okay, you know what? I spent the summer investing in these guys. Like, we're really going to do this. We're going to make this thing happen. So I talked to Crusade. I'm like, yo, that African-American dude, he was awesome, but he had a 1-year internship. Do you guys have another person to help me out here? And they're like, yeah, totally do. Her name's Jen. Straight up, freckle-faced, redheaded girl. I'm like, when am I ever going to learn to be Asian? Like, so that's how my senior year started. It became very clear that the only thing that God wanted me to do was to cast a vision. And the vision was something like this. We can't see it now, but God is going to do something big. I have no evidence that it's going to happen, but all I got is a feeling that every time I close my eyes, there's a picture. One day there will be a room full of people. One day there'll be enough people here when people are hurting. There will be enough other people to come help them. One day there'll be enough people in a room where if they wanted to go rise up and move on campus, there would be enough of them. But it's not for me. It's probably not for you. But it will happen. And that was the vision. We wouldn't see it, but somebody else would. Can we be faithful? So it's a challenge for ourselves. Would we be faithful? The end of the year, we actually grew. We grew from 3 guys to 4 guys. So it's great. Every year, added somebody. We actually added half a girl. It's pretty awesome. She was like Crusade, but she was like, hey, every once in a while I'll come to prayer time. So that was cool. So it went from like epic men's Bible study to like epic movement. And then this weird thing happened to me. I was like, it was 4 years into this epic ministry, and I knew like epic leadership, like national leadership, pretty well because there weren't a lot of us. So I finally emailed someone like, hey, I've been kind of doing this epic thing for a bit. What does it mean? I never asked the question. And they were like, yeah, well, let me tell you. It's not epic as in like amazing cool. It's epic as in like in the Iliad or Odyssey, as in like a story. We call it epic because we want this to be a story that's passed down from generation to generation. That like similar to like the oral tradition of these epics, the epic of this ministry is about a hero's journey. That whether you're like a historian of Asian culture or you just like to eat rice, epic is the story about a hero named Jesus Christ who's working in and around Asian Americans to change the lives of those in Christ's kingdom. And I'm like, dang! Because God has been writing a story in my life. That these first 4 years, these first 4 chapters, if you will, they don't start off as like this encouraging, amazing movement. But what they do speak to is God's relentlessness. That despite like the times when I was like, God, I don't want to do this anymore. Where are you, God? What has happened? he continued to be faithful. But the fruit of the labor was not something that I got to witness. It's something that I get to see now. But when I was here in the midst of it, it just seemed like a complete waste of time. And like, isn't that something that like in my life happens all the time? Like, God, would you just please help me? And it's only when I get a chance to look back that I can see God's hand at work. Okay. So I was, as I was graduating, I pulled the 5.5 of us together, and I said, let's put together some prayers. Let's put together some prayers to see, discrete things that we want to see God answer. So the first was, let's find a leader. Because despite the time and effort I had poured into Danny and Mark and this other guy named Joe, when it came time for me to graduate, I was like, hey Danny, will you take the reins? He's like, nah, bro. I'm gonna go do this worship thing. I went to, hey Mark, will you take these reins? He's like, no, I think I'm gonna go to this other ministry. I was like, hey Joe, you gonna take these reins? He's like, no, I'm actually going back to the Philippines. I was like, okay, well, let's pray for a leader. The next thing was, let's pray for women. We only have half of one right now. Let's pray that God would grow this ministry to 10 people. Let's pray that we would see someone come to Christ through this ministry. And there's one more prayer that I have. Still quite hasn't been answered yet, but I'll end with it later at this talk. But we list out those prayers. I graduate, and this was my feeling. I look back at my time, and I spent 4 years trying to do this thing. At the end of it, we had 4 people, none of whom wanted to continue doing it. I looked at God and I'm like, God, like, I gave it everything I had. And yeah, I wasn't faithful every week. Yeah, I wanted to give up. Yeah, like, it was tough. But God, like, I feel like I emptied my pockets. I have nothing left. And yet, there's nothing to show for it. My word to you seniors is this. Don't get caught up with what the next phase of life will be. Yes, be faithful. If God's calling you into the workplace, go look for a job and stuff like that. God's calling you in ministry, go do the thing. But don't focus on that. Because God will provide for your needs, just like the birds in the air and the flowers in the fields. That will happen. He will provide. What are you going to do in the meantime? Because God has been pouring into you. He's been shaping you. And everything that you have learned, just turn around and give it back to the people who look up to you. Empty your own pockets. So I graduated. I was like, well, that was a flop. But then I would call back in. And I called back into Jen, the redhead girl. She was super bubbly. She's like, hey, guess what? Danny decided to step up and be a leader. Danny Kim went up and ended up leading this ministry for 2 years after. Found women, as evident. The first year I came back, there were 20 people. The year after that, there were 40 people. The year after that, there were 60. And not that like growth means anything. Like what really matters is like, is there at least one person here who answers God's call? Right? Because the Bible says God looks to and fro, looking who he can show himself strong in. Is there at least just one person who says, yes, God, please show yourself strong in me? But it was just continued answers to prayer. I think it was 2 years, maybe 3 years after I graduated that the first person, this guy named Jun Sung, came to Christ. It's amazing what happens when you go about God's work, that you submit to his will and say, I'm just going to go with where you're directing me, God. And you throw up and you say, God, here's what I'm praying for, and pray for very specific things. And then to recognize that these prayers are not lost. These prayers are heard by the person who created this universe. And that it's in his timing that he chooses to answer. Let me say this. If you're in a place where you're really struggling, whether it be physically, emotionally, spiritually, just know that God is in a process of shaping you. That sometimes these struggles and challenges, these are exactly what you're meant to go through. Because the refinement process, the transformation process, doesn't occur without there being some sort of stretching, compression phase. If I look at the person who stepped onto this campus as a freshman versus the person who stepped off of it as a senior, those two people are completely different. In those 4 years, God completely transformed who I was. And for you, if you're finding yourself in a place where it's just, man, I don't get it. I don't get why I'm going through this struggle. Cling to God. Because I promise you, he is there with you. And he's allowing you to go through it because he has something better for you on the other end. The other thing I want to say is a ministry. Sometimes you can get caught up in the mechanics or the logistics of running a ministry. Hey, you gotta put on this thing. This takes a lot of effort. There's Bible studies that takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of things that go into running a ministry. If you're a part of that, don't get lost in that. The mechanics of a ministry are not nearly as important as what the ministry is trying to show. You guys are here to embody the love of Christ. That you are a fragrance around the campus. That when people encounter you, they are meant to encounter an impression of Jesus Christ himself. And that these things that are put on are just more meant to allow people to encounter him, to encounter one another. So don't get lost in that. I say that because this is a student-led year. It's been a long time since that was the case. And if you're a student leader, don't get lost in thinking that you have to lead, but that actually you are following where God is leading you. Okay. Let me end with this. I said I would start this with a prayer and I would end it with a prayer. There was one more prayer that when I brought my 4.5 folks together, still hasn't been answered, but let me cast the vision for you guys. If you guys could just entertain me, just close your eyes right now. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're in a room similar to this. The lights are dark. There is just crazy intense worship going on. You see students you've never seen before encountering God in a real, vibrant way. That it's years from now, but it's still the ministry called Epic at Cal Poly. It's still a ministry because God is faithful. Worship ends. The lights turn back on. And there's a old dude in the corner. And it's super awkward. You're man, what's going on here? I see all these college students who are just connecting with God, and I see this awkward old dude in the back. My prayer is that would be me. That God, would you allow me to be able to come back to this ministry as an old man, just so I can witness your faithfulness and continue to call your people together, continue to grow your people, continue to use your people to change eternity. Allow me the opportunity to see that. That's my last prayer. The only way that that can occur is through faithful students who continue generation and generation serving him. Sorry, you can open your eyes. But that's my prayer for this ministry. That you guys would rise up and recognize that you are here by divine appointment. You are here because thousands of hours of prayer have been thrown up to the creator of this universe, asking that you would come, that you would encounter him, and that you would help change other people's lives for eternity. Let's pray. Father God, Lord, I thank you so much for just this ministry called Epic, God. Not because of what it stands for, but who it stands for. Lord, I thank you for your faithfulness. I thank you for the work that you're doing in each and every one of these students, God. Lord, I look expectantly to see what next year will hold, what the year after that will hold. Because, God, you're refining all the students here. That you choose to use them to change the face of this campus. That you use them to change the direction of people's eternal position. And so, God, I pray for just an extra helping of grace and mercy on these students, God. That as they just go through the business of studying for class, working for some of them, and being a part of this ministry, and all the other things that vie for their time, God, I pray for an extra helping of grace and mercy that they would never lose sight of the God who is in the hot pursuit of them. And so, Lord, I thank you for just the opportunity of tonight. I thank you for each and every one of these students. And I just pray that this year will be just a year marked with divine answers to prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.